Before you decide this is just another motivational video, pause. Because what I am about to tell you might rearrange the way you see your entire life. Right now, there is a version of you watching this who is tired. Tired of doubting. Tired of starting and stopping. Tired of feeling like you are capable of more, but somehow never fully stepping into it. And you have probably heard speeches before. You have felt inspired before. You have promised yourself, this time will be different. But nothing changed. So let me make you a different kind of promise. If you stay with me until the end of this video, you will not just feel motivated. You will see yourself differently. And once you see differently, you cannot go back. Because the real problem is not your discipline. It is not your intelligence. It is not your background. The real problem is that you have been measuring yourself with standards that were never designed for who you are becoming. And today, we are going to break that. I am going to challenge the way you interpret loneliness, doubt, criticism, and even failure. I am going to show you why the very things you think are holding you back might actually be proof that you are ahead. But you have to stay. You have to listen carefully, not casually, not while scrolling, fully present. Because somewhere in the next few minutes, you are going to recognize yourself in a way you never have before. And when that moment hits, you will realize something powerful. You were never behind, you were just early. Let's go deeper into something most people misunderstand. When you feel alone, your first instinct is to assume something is wrong. You assume you're broken. You assume you don't fit. You assume you missed some invisible instruction manual everyone else received. But what if the opposite is true? What if that feeling of isolation is not evidence of weakness, but evidence of growth? Think about this carefully. Growth is separation. Every time you evolve, you separate from a previous version of yourself. And when you separate from who you used to be, you also begin to separate from the environment that was built for that old version of you. That separation feels like loneliness. Psychologically, human beings are wired for belonging. For thousands of years, survival meant staying inside the tribe. Being different could literally mean death. So when you start thinking differently, when you question assumptions, when you reject average standards, your nervous system interprets it as danger. It sends signals of discomfort. It whispers, go back, blend in, don't risk it. But evolution has never favored comfort. It has always favored adaptation. The people who push boundaries are not comfortable people. They are curious people. And curiosity often isolates you before it elevates you. When you begin to outgrow your environment, you notice things others ignore. Conversations feel repetitive. Goals feel small. Excuses sound loud. You start craving depth, complexity, challenge. And suddenly you feel like you are standing in a room where nobody sees what you see. That does not mean you are superior. It means your mind is stretching. Stretching is uncomfortable. Muscles tear before they grow. Neural pathways strain before they strengthen. Expansion always feels like tension before it feels like power. Most people interpret that tension as a signal to stop. High performers interpret it as a signal to continue. Loneliness at this stage is not social failure. It is psychological transition. You are between identities. You are no longer who you used to be, but you are not yet who you are becoming. And that space in between can feel empty. But empty space is where innovation lives. If you study any major shift in history, the pattern is consistent. Before an idea becomes obvious, it is isolated. Before it becomes accepted, it is questioned. Before it becomes mainstream, it is misunderstood. The same applies to personal transformation. When you decide you want more out of life, your internal standards change immediately. But the external world does not update at the same speed. That mismatch creates friction. You start operating on a new frequency while your surroundings are still tuned to the old one. That friction feels like loneliness. But it is actually alignment with your future self. There is also a philosophical layer here. Identity is not static, it is a construction. And when you consciously reconstruct it, you step outside of the collective script. Most people follow inherited beliefs without examining them. The moment you begin to question the script, you step out of synchronization with the majority. And majority comfort is built on shared assumptions. When you reject those assumptions, you temporarily reject belonging. That is not weakness. That is agency. You are choosing to think. And thinking independently is one of the most psychologically demanding actions a human being can take. It requires you to tolerate uncertainty. It requires you to tolerate disagreement. It requires you to tolerate being seen as different. Most people would rather belong than be right. Most people would rather fit in than stand out. But if you are watching this, you probably feel a pull towards something bigger than fitting in. That pull isolates you before it empowers you. There is also a neurological reality behind this. When you pursue ambitious goals, your brain increases focus on long-term reward structures. You start valuing delayed gratification over immediate approval. But social approval is immediate. It is fast dopamine. It is instant validation. It is long-term fulfillment. When you shift from immediate approval to long-term impact, you reduce your dependency on constant validation. And that reduction can feel like distance from others who are still operating on short-term cycles. Again, that distance is not deficiency, it is maturity. You are developing internal validation. And internal validation is the foundation of leadership. If you need constant reassurance, you will constantly compromise. But if you can stand in your own conviction without applause, you become stable. And stability under uncertainty is rare. Here is the truth: most people avoid loneliness is often the price of self-respect. When you stop laughing at jokes that do not align with your values, you lose some approval. When you stop participating in habits that shrink you, you lose some invitations. When you stop pretending to be smaller than you are, you lose some comfort. But you gain clarity, and clarity is power. The feeling of being alone is sometimes just the echo of your own standards rising. It is not that people left you. It is that you moved forward. There is a difference. If you abandon yourself to avoid loneliness, you will always feel incomplete. But if you endure temporary loneliness to build alignment with who you truly are, you build something unshakable: self-trust. And self-trust is the opposite of weakness. The strongest individuals in any field share one trait: they can sit alone with their thoughts without collapsing. They can pursue an idea before anyone else believes in it. They can tolerate being early. Being early feels like being wrong. But history proves otherwise. The pattern is simple. First you are alone. Then you are doubted. Then you are imitated. If you quit at the first stage, you never reach the third. So the next time you feel isolated, do not immediately label it as failure. Ask yourself a different question. Am I alone because I am lost? Or am I alone because I am evolving? There is a massive difference between isolation caused by fear and isolation caused by growth. Growth stretches you. If you feel stretched, challenged, uncomfortable, yet driven, that is not a warning sign. That is expansion. You are not broken. You are building. And building requires space. So instead of running from that space, use it. Think in it. Design in it. Strengthen in it. Let it sharpen you rather than scare you. Because the version of you that can stand alone with clarity is the version that can eventually lead others with confidence. And here is the final truth. Loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the presence of transformation. If you can understand that, you will stop trying to escape the feeling and start extracting power from it. And once you learn to turn isolation into strength, you will realize something profound. You are never alone. You are becoming. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable. Standing alone is not just a phase of growth. It is the price of innovation. If you want to create something new, you must accept that, at least for a period of time, you will be misunderstood. That is not a motivational slogan. That is structural reality. Innovation, by definition, challenges the existing structure, and existing structures defend themselves. When you introduce a new idea, you are not just presenting a concept. You are disrupting certainty. You are questioning habits. You are threatening comfort. And people protect comfort instinctively. So when they doubt you, it is not always about you personally. It is about cognitive resistance. Human beings are wired to conserve mental energy. We prefer patterns that are familiar because they require less processing power. A new idea forces the brain to work harder. It introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty feels unsafe. This is why groundbreaking ideas often sound unreasonable at first. Not because they are illogical, but because they are unfamiliar. There is a psychological phenomenon called status quo bias. It describes our tendency to prefer things to stay the same. Even when improvement is possible, people often choose familiarity over progress. If you decide to innovate, you are directly confronting that bias. And confrontation creates friction. Most people avoid friction. Innovators walk toward it. That does not mean they enjoy criticism. It means they understand something deeper. They understand that resistance is evidence of impact. If nobody reacts to your idea, it probably does not challenge anything. But if your idea disrupts assumptions, expect pushback. The mistake many ambitious people make is interpreting pushback as proof they are wrong. In reality, pushback is often proof they are early. Timing is everything. When you are early, you stand alone because the mental infrastructure around you has not yet adapted to your vision. Think about how change spreads. First, one person sees a possibility. Then a small group understands it. Then gradually, it becomes obvious. But in that first stage, when it is only visible to you, the isolation feels intense. You question yourself. You wonder if you are overestimating your abilities. You wonder if you are being unrealistic. That internal doubt is normal. But it must not become decisive. If every idea required immediate approval to survive, nothing transformative would ever be built. Courage is not the absence of doubt. It is the decision to move forward despite it. There is also a philosophical dimension to this. Innovation is an act of individual sovereignty. It is the refusal to let consensus dictate possibility. Consensus is useful for stability, but it rarely creates breakthroughs. Breakthroughs emerge from individuals who are willing to detach from collective limitations long enough to imagine alternatives. And imagination, at first, isolates you. You might look around and feel like nobody understands the scale of what you are trying to do. Conversations feel small compared to the vision in your head. That gap between vision and validation can feel unbearable. But that gap is the testing ground of conviction. If your belief collapses without applause, it was never strong enough to build anything substantial. Real builders develop internal metrics. They evaluate ideas based on logic, evidence, and long-term potential, not short-term popularity. Popularity is a lagging indicator. Vision is a leading one. You cannot expect the majority to validate a future they cannot yet see. This is why innovators must become comfortable with temporary isolation. Not because isolation is glamorous, but because it is unavoidable. If you are always surrounded by agreement, you are probably not challenging anything meaningful. There is also risk involved. Standing alone means accepting uncertainty. It means accepting that you could fail publicly. And the fear of public failure is one of the strongest psychological barriers humans face. Our brains exaggerate the consequences of social rejection. But in reality, most criticism is temporary and most failure is survivable. What is not survivable, at least psychologically, is the regret of never attempting what you knew you were capable of. Regret compounds quietly. You might escape criticism by staying small, but you will not escape self-awareness. Deep down, you will know you chose comfort over potential. Innovation requires the opposite choice. It requires choosing long-term impact over short-term acceptance. And that choice can make you feel alone in a room full of people. But understand this clearly. Standing alone does not mean standing unsupported forever. It means standing unsupported long enough for the world to recalibrate. When you commit to an idea and consistently execute, something shifts. People who once doubted begin to observe. Observers become believers. Believers become collaborators. But none of that happens if you abandon your position at the first sign of resistance. Endurance is part of innovation. You must endure misunderstanding. You must endure skepticism. You must endure silence. And during that silence, you refine, you iterate, you improve, you gather data, you strengthen your reasoning, you transform vision into execution. Because innovation is not blind stubbornness. It is disciplined persistence guided by evidence and learning. If reality proves you wrong, you adjust. If reality supports your hypothesis, you double down. The key is not ego. The key is commitment to truth and progress. Standing alone should never mean ignoring feedback. It means filtering feedback through reason instead of fear. If criticism is logical, use it to improve. If it is emotional or uninformed, do not let it dictate your direction. You must separate noise from signal. And that requires intellectual maturity. The people who change industries, systems, or even their own lives share one common trait. They do not wait for universal agreement before acting. They move based on conviction grounded in logic. Conviction without logic is delusion. Logic without conviction is paralysis. You need both. And when you combine them, you become difficult to stop. But you will still feel alone at times. That feeling is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Innovation compresses the crowd into the future. And the one who moves first always experiences the emptiness of open space. If you feel that emptiness, do not retreat. Expand into it. Use it to think more clearly. Use it to build more precisely. Use it to strengthen your resilience. Because once others catch up, they will not remember how lonely the beginning felt. But you will, and that memory will become your advantage. It will remind you that you are capable of standing without permission. So when you feel misunderstood, do not immediately shrink. Ask yourself a harder question. Is this resistance proof that I should stop, or proof that I am challenging something real? If the answer is the second one, then stay the course. History does not remember the comfortable. It remembers the ones who were willing to stand alone long enough to change what everyone else accepted. And if you are serious about building something that matters, you must be willing to pay that price. Because the future does not belong to those who wait for approval. It belongs to those who can endure isolation without surrendering their vision. Now here is where everything shifts. You are not just an isolated individual fighting private battles. You are part of a pattern, a much larger one. When you feel different, when you feel driven in ways that people around you do not fully understand, it is easy to assume you are alone in that intensity. But intensity recognizes intensity. Vision recognizes vision. And even if you have not met your people yet, they exist. The mistake is assuming that physical proximity defines connection. It does not. Psychological alignment defines connection. There are millions of people across the world right now who are thinking beyond their circumstances. They are questioning the defaults. They are rejecting mediocrity quietly. They are studying late at night. They are building in silence. They are doubting themselves but continuing anyway. You may not know their names. You may never meet most of them. But you are connected through mindset. And mindset is more powerful than geography. In the digital age, something profound has happened. Ideas travel faster than ever before. A single thought, if articulated clearly, can resonate across continents within seconds. That means the probability that you are truly alone in your thinking is almost zero. If you are thinking it deeply, someone else is thinking it too. The reason it feels isolating is because high-level ambition is not evenly distributed. The majority optimize for stability, a minority optimize for expansion. When you belong to that minority, your local environment may not reflect your internal standards, but the world is larger than your immediate environment. This is important psychologically. When you believe you are completely alone, your motivation decreases. Humans derive energy from shared purpose. We are not meant to operate in isolation indefinitely. Even the most independent thinkers benefit from knowing there are others who value the same principles. That knowledge changes your endurance. Instead of feeling like an outsider, you start feeling like an early member of something emerging. Think about every movement in history. At the beginning, participants felt scattered. They thought they were isolated thinkers. Over time, they discovered alignment. That alignment created momentum. Momentum created transformation. Alignment does not require uniformity. It requires shared direction. You do not need everyone to agree with you. You need a few people who understand the trajectory you are pursuing. And here is the deeper philosophical insight. Individual growth and collective progress are not opposites. They are interdependent. When you elevate your thinking, you contribute to the intellectual ecosystem around you. Your discipline raises the standard. Your questions raise awareness. Your courage makes boldness more acceptable for others. Even if you never speak on a stage, your choices send signals. Humans are highly responsive to modeled behavior. When someone in a social group begins taking calculated risks, others start reconsidering their own limitations. When someone refuses to complain and instead builds solutions, it alters the psychological climate. You underestimate the impact of your example. The moment you decide to pursue excellence seriously, you become evidence that it is possible, and evidence is contagious. So while you might feel alone at the beginning, you are actually participating in a distributed network of thinkers and builders who are quietly shifting expectations everywhere. That is not poetic. It is structural. Society evolves because individuals upgrade themselves. And when enough individuals upgrade, the collective baseline rises. You are part of that equation. But here is the key. Community is not something you passively wait for. It is something you signal into existence. When you express your ideas clearly, when you share your journey honestly, when you articulate your standards unapologetically, you create a filter. That filter attracts those who resonate and repels those who do not. Both are necessary. If everyone resonates, you are probably saying nothing specific. Clarity creates division, division creates alignment. The right people find you when you stop diluting your message. In practical terms, this means you should not hide your ambition to make others comfortable. You should not downplay your goals to avoid intimidation. You should not silence your curiosity because it disrupts small talk. Speak precisely, think rigorously, act consistently. The people who are operating at your frequency will recognize it. And even if the number is small, small groups change the world far more often than large, unfocused crowds. Another psychological dimension is this. Belonging to a community of high standards does not mean constant agreement. It means shared commitment to growth. In such communities, ideas are challenged not to destroy them, but to refine them. If you seek that environment, you must also be willing to offer it. Encourage others, challenge others constructively, share knowledge openly. Collaboration among driven individuals multiplies capability. Isolation builds strength, community multiplies impact. Both are necessary at different stages. First, you develop alone. Then you connect intentionally. But you cannot connect meaningfully if you have not first defined yourself independently. Otherwise, you simply merge into noise. That is why your earlier loneliness was important. It clarified your values. It forced you to rely on internal validation. It sharpened your thinking. Now, when you connect with others, you do so from strength, not dependency. And that is powerful. Understand this clearly. You are not waiting for the world to change before you act. You are part of the mechanism that changes it. Somewhere right now, someone is questioning whether they should continue pursuing their vision. They feel misunderstood. They feel uncertain. If they see you persist, it might be the evidence they need to continue. Your resilience has ripple effects. Your discipline has ripple effects. Your refusal to settle has ripple effects. So no, you are not alone. You are a node in a global network of individuals who are raising their standards simultaneously. You are connected through ambition, through curiosity, through dissatisfaction with average. And when enough nodes strengthen, the network becomes unstoppable. But it begins with you taking responsibility for your position in that network. Do not wait to be invited. Contribute, build, share. Refine. Lead where you are. Because connection is not found, it is forged through action aligned with values. And when you realize that millions of others are walking a parallel path of growth and innovation, isolation transforms into mission. You stop asking, "Why am I different?" And you start asking, "How far can we push this?" That question changes everything. So move forward with clarity. Seek those who challenge you. Become someone who elevates others. Operate as if your growth matters beyond your personal success, because it does. You were never meant to shrink to feel connected. You were meant to rise and find others who rise too. And once you understand that, you will stop seeing yourself as alone. You will see yourself as part of something emerging. Act like it.